Hello and welcome. My name is Biagio Mazza, Pastoral Associate at St. Sabina Parish in Belton, Missouri, and I'm here to welcome you to another Do You Know series question. As we continue our series on the evolution of Christianity out of Judaism, today's Do You Know question focuses on how the church's identity, structure, and rituals changed after the age of Constantine. So it's important to recall that in the year 312, Constantine, the Emperor Constantine, made Christianity legal in the empire. And it wasn't until the year 380 that the Emperor Theodosius made Christianity the sole religion of the empire. And by 391, Theodosius also condemned, closed all pagan temples and condemned the worship of any pagan religion, and so on. So Christianity shifted from a religion that had been persecuted to the only religion in the empire. This significant shift brought changes into the understanding that the church's own identity, its structure, and its ritual practices, to which we still are impacted to this very day. So what I'd like to do is just examine a few of those changes, both in, as I said, in structure, in its own identity, and as well as its ritual practice. So let's start with the identity. The church's identity moved from being at odds with the state and the culture, and actually ended up, being persecuted by the state, to a religion that really was now wedded to, meshed, if you want to, with the state and the culture. So much so that it began to develop a sense of triumphalism, of having arrived, of being number one, and so with it brought all sorts of power and influence and so on. Different understanding from where it was. The shift in identity also began to move from understanding itself as a pilgrim church focused on community and community involvement to pretty much a rooted church, well established and accommodating, if you want, itself accommodating to the empire and the structure and the culture and the state. And this will lead to all sorts of conflicts with regard, especially when the conflict arose between the teachings and the beliefs of the Gospels and the actions of the state, especially if the church was such an integral part of the state. In terms of structure, for example, there were a number of significant changes that occurred. We went from having very few in numbers to, and by the way, very few in numbers were people who were significantly committed and had a significant involvement with the church, to significant growth in numbers, many joining for the wrong reasons, many with the very minimal commitment sometimes, and so on. So we went also then from regional, horizontal churches, many as sister churches and communities connected with other churches, to a structure that was pretty much patriarchal and hierarchical and vertical. So much so that now we had mother-daughter churches as opposed to the equality of sister churches. And also when it came to ministry, for example, in terms of structure, ministry was understood primarily as service to God's people, especially the most in need, to a shift to the minister and ministry being seen as a powerful person concerned primarily with power, with structure, and so on, and not necessarily as much with service anymore. And even the image of Jesus, it's really very fascinating here. Even the image of Jesus changes from one who is a mediator between human beings and God, who was truly fully human, fully God, to an image of God, of Jesus as primarily the eternal judge, pretty much mostly divine, and even the artwork began to reflect all of this. And then in terms of its ritual practice, we shifted from celebrations in small house churches with the entire community involved in the celebration and taking active part, to celebrations being held in basilicas, large buildings that now had the membership, the community was now sitting primarily ritualizing and looking at what was happening on the stage in the front, primarily dominated by the bishop and the clergy. And so what resulted is fewer involvement and more with the community being more spectators than participants. And also with regards to sacraments. Sacraments were all seen as community involvement, which the whole community was involved in the enactment of the sacraments, to sacraments now becoming the primary focus of the clergy, the ordained clergy, with minimal involvement on the part of the community. And so significant shifts occurred in both identity, structure, and ritual practice, to which we still struggle with to this very day. Many of these things obviously were very beneficial for the church at that time. Others were not so beneficial. And we still continue to struggle with those things that were not helpful in carrying out the mission and ministry of Jesus. So I'm hoping that as we examine these changes, that you will see that the benefits that we gained from being the only religion in the empire, as well as the shadow side of power, concern with authority, concern with wealth, that could lead and did lead to a lot of abuses and a lot of struggling away from the gospel values. So I hope this has helped to explain just a bit of how the church's identity, structure, and rituals changed after the age of Constantine. And I hope you will return again to more Do You Know series questions as we continue to explore our traditions, our beliefs, and our practices, especially in their historical context. Thank you very much.